So, first of all, I want to thank you for bringing Ryszard Kapuscinski into my life.
The writer?
Because I read a book, I don't know if it was this one maybe, but in some book you wrote about him and how someone recommended his book Imperium to you.
Yeah, there was a guy, a longtime pal of mine, he died of cancer a couple of years ago, an Australian named Mick Geyer. If you see any Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds album, you'll see Mick being thanked. He's like Nick Cave's mentor, and quite a guy for me too. I've knew him for many years, and he would always say, "Hey, check out this writer, see this film, and check out this artist." And he was never wrong in how good it was. Like if he said, "Hey, you might like to check out this writer," I'd buy the book and read it, and it was like the best book I read that year. And so whenever Mick Geyer would make a suggestion, I would write it down and go get that book, you know, or see that film or what have you. And at one time we were playing in Italy, and he was working for the UN in Switzerland. So he said, "Hey, I'm going to take the train and come and see you." And we talked after the show, and he wrote down on a piece of paper Ryszard Kapuscinski and said, "Great books, read them all." And he told me to start with that one about Haile Selassie, I think. And so I went right to Amazon.com, the online thing, and I ordered all the books, just because you know it was. If Mick says read them, I just read them. And I read every Kapuscinski book I've ever seen. All of them are quite good, like stunning to me. He's one of the clearest, most kind of hit you over the head writers I've ever read.
He's very on point.
He really is, and he really is able to capture the message. And of all of those books, and they're all really worth reading, the ones that were most relevant to me was Imperium, and another one called Another Day of Life, about life in Africa, which is just really intense. So, Kapuscinski is at least one of the 5 best writers I think I've ever read. And so what else?
Do you read different stuff when you're on the road, when you're on tour, or when you're traveling? Is there like do you read different books than you read at home?
That's a good question. I used to. And actually, sometimes if there's a writer who does fiction that's kind of lighter weight, like, you know, Elroy, who's not a heavy duty, he's not a lightweight writer by any means, but it's fiction, truth-based fiction, like he's really great. Black Dahlia, oh boy, he's really fun. All his books are great. There's not a bad one in the bunch. They're great, but they're one of those books that's kind of like hard to put down, because it just keeps reading. And those books are fun to read. And I often will take those to Europe, so if I'm jet lagging at 3 in the morning, I'll read for a while. But quite often, the books that I end up reading a lot are the harder to get through history books, books on politics, just so I can learn. You know, I'm reading a book right now about Pakistan, and it's slow going. You know, because it's in translation.
Because you're always interrupted.
Well, and also it's just like 80 facts a line. It's just like every page you feel like you've just read a book per page, and it doesn't read as fun as like reading, you know, about Hannibal Lecter. Where you're like, and throw the book behind you and grab the next one. And so, over the years, I find that I read a lot less fiction. And I love literature, like, you know, people like Camus or F. Scott Fitzgerald. That's like my first love of reading, is to read those guys, like these people who really had amazing minds, who could really put words together. But for the last several years, I read primarily nonfiction. So I just drag whatever I was reading off the road. I just take it on tour with me with like 3 or 4 more books, and I try and read every day on the road. And so I get not very much reading done on the road, especially of this kind, because it's just too taxing. And I have a show every night, and that is my main priority. Also, I do a lot of writing myself, and I'm always editing like my next book. Actually, right now I'm editing 2 books and writing another, and trying to read, and do a show. So every day I'm like trying to keep it all together. So I wish I could get more reading done, but I'm so nervous about not being good on stage. By 5 p.m. I can't read anything, just I'm only thinking about the gig.
So I know that.
Because
it's cool that you have a tool that calms me down a bit. Because I always think like, shit, there's so many time that I could have spent with something that makes sense, like reading.
Yeah.
But I just stare out the window. And sometimes.
Yeah, but you know what? If you're an artist type, you need to stare out the window. I mean, you need that time just to kind of think about things. So then that's where you get your lyrics from, or a riff, or your next song, or the next idea with what you want to do. You need that time, you know, and that's why you need to go for long walks and just, you know, not hang out with your friends all the time. You need some time just to sit and space out. Kafka, the writer, he said all you really need to write is just a table and a room, and the world will come to you through your perception. If you sit long enough, the world will be unable not to reveal itself to you, which I think is a fascinating concept. It's in one of his notebooks. Really wild thing. And I believe in that. I spend a lot of time by myself, you know, on airplanes or whatever, just kind of sitting with my mind, just letting the wheels run and just seeing where it takes me.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, you know, and that is quite productive.
Yeah.